A series of conversations prompted by a controversial arrest tackles concerns about police violence and a broken trust with some in the Black community. Here to talk about it, I'm joined by Dr. Audrieanna Burgin, CEO of the racial healing and equity nonprofit 90 Forward. Good morning, Dr. Burgin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We're also joined by the group's director of equity, ReGina Newkirk. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Melinda Patterson, a criminal defense attorney based here in Jacksonville. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Bergen, I guess I want to start with how 90 Forward initially absorbed the news of this arrest organizationally, and then kind of at what point you decided you wanted to have some conversations with the community.
Yeah. Well, if you know anything about 904, conversations is what we do, courageous conversations. As we absorbed it, first personally, and then as an organization, we found the incident troubling, disheartening. We understood and began to hear initially, like right away, the frustrations from the community. And then we huddled up over a series of conversations ourselves and, decided what is our response. And our response is always power through unity and focusing on the bigger policy issues and how we really drive change forward. And it was like, what do we need in this moment? In this moment, we need to lift the voice of the community and understand what's really happening. This is not an isolated incident. And as we started to look at the policy changes we wanted to make, that became more than just one event, more than just one conversations, and it began our justice series. So I'll start with that, and I'll pass it to my director of equity because I know she is burning to
ReGina.
tap in. Yes, ReGina. I'll pass it to her.
Well, these conversations are so important and they're so incredibly nuanced. So, for instance, our conversation tomorrow night really is highlighting a lot of the coded language that is around these types of arrests, these types of excessive use of force. How do we break that apart? How do we understand what's going on? And again, to Dr. Bergen's point, how do we address the policy issues that are behind it? When we have a police force that is legally allowed to police themselves, and we have a governor who has stated that he wants to make Florida the friendliest state to police in the nation. What exactly does that mean, and what kinds of policies are put forth that allow this type of behavior to continue?
I want to ask you, when you talk about the coded language that is used to describe or to discuss some of these events, can you break down a little bit what you mean by that?
And so now you're going to take away some of the event for tomorrow night. But for example, one of the things that we've heard so often with Mr. McNeil's assault, as well as others, he should have just complied. And there's a lot behind that statement, because what it's saying is that it's justifiable behavior if you don't comply, and that a person who is fearful, who is nervous, who is unsure of what's happening is expected to have exceptional, perfect behavior in order to get what we would consider to just be fair treatment. And I don't think that people think about that phrase in that way. But when you say he should have just complied, it really does say, but because he didn't comply, he is deserving of abuse. And that's not the society that we really want to live in.
Melinda, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the clients that you work with and the individuals. I mean, just yesterday you were showing me some dramatic video of one of your clients in a very intense takedown. A man standing in front of his house who was unarmed and just standing there. His case was ultimately dropped because of the work that you did on it, but he spent 136 days in jail and endured this very violent arrest. Can you talk about, just in your criminal practice, how often you see incidents where people who are kind of not resisting or are apparently complying are being treated in a way that you find objectionable?
I would say it's very consistent. In maybe 10 cases that I look at over a month, and it obviously, it goes to a particular demographic when we start looking at these issues as well. The younger Black male demographic is a larger target for this. Unfortunately, the majority of the people that we see come through the criminal justice system are younger Black males. One of the reports that we were looking at yesterday were the numbers from last year, the response to resistance reports. 56.6% were men or people under the age of 35. There's maybe 5 to 6 of the 10 I look at in a month where there's an overuse of force. The video we looked at yesterday, the man was in compliance. That did not stop 6 officers from piling on top of him, pulling hair, punching in the face. This is not uncommon in Jacksonville. One of the points that were made repeatedly after the video with McNeil came out was that he never put in a complaint. He never filed anything with JSO. People who have that perspective have never had the issue or known anyone to be targeted by JSO. Once you become a target for, and I'm not saying this in any way as a generalized, this is all police officers, this is all of JSO, it's not. But we do have problematic units within JSO. And these units, they're not normal patrol officers that are driving around issuing tickets. These particular units are usually very specific. They have a specific job they're supposed to be doing, whether it's in a certain area, targeting certain groups. And once you become a person that's on their radar, once you become a target, every day of your life, you're having to watch over your back. It's like being in a war zone. This is not warranted a lot of the time. I had a juvenile case recently. I'm not going to say his name. 16 years old and was targeted by the gang unit on the west side. He's not on the gang registry, only recently moved to Jacksonville. The report verbatim states that they see him go into the store, they call up other gang unit, they start circling the area where the kid and his 2 friends are walking back home. They end up pulling up next to them on the sidewalk because of a pedestrian infraction, because of the way he crossed the street. The kids take off running because here's these, adult men jumping out of a van coming at them. They're walking home from the store. Now we're resisting arrest because we're terrified of what's happening. Anyone would be terrified of that. One of the juveniles that I ended up representing, they chase him to where there's like one of the big drainage ditch type areas. He goes running in there. He eventually stops. And you see all this on the body cam. He stops, puts his hands up. He says, okay, I'm done. I'm not resisting. The officer still proceeds to pick him up by the back of his shirt, slam him down into the tree roots that are coming out of the ground head first. Slams him down. How he didn't crack his skull, get a concussion, I have no idea. And then another officer comes running up, knees him in the head. This is all to gain compliance with someone who just said, I'm complying. This is a 16-year-old. This is consistently happening here. Do you imagine that he's going to go file a complaint for this to now happen again when he's walking down the sidewalk and gets attacked? That's not an option.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about a series of community conversations and ongoing community reaction to a controversial traffic stop and the resulting viral video. You can join our conversation on air by calling 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. And just a note, today we are discussing community reaction to this controversial video, but we are covering this story from all sides. And if you'd like to hear a different perspective, you can watch or listen to our July 22nd show, which featured the views of 3 current and former law enforcement officers, including the sheriff. I do want to say, the sheriff would say, Dr. Burgin, that this is an infrequent occurrence. And some of that he would base on numbers. The response to resistance report that Melinda Patterson was referencing, that's published each year by the sheriff's office. It's put on their website. It's made available to the public so people can themselves look at how often incidents like this are happening. Out of 768,000 calls for service in 2024, fewer than 1% resulted in a response to resistance, basically anything that involved a weapon or a takedown or a use of force. That I think would in some ways validate the sheriff's position that this is not happening all that often, 1% of the time. Do figures like that give you any pause in your concern about, the rate or the need for um, uh, pushback when an incident like this does happen?
Honestly, no. I've born and raised in Jacksonville. I have my lived experience. We have the lived experience of Black and brown people all over this city, all over this county, all over this nation. Um, I do love that they released that data. We believe at 904, and I believe personally as a data scientist and economist that the most powerful community is an informed, educated, aware, community. But there are statistics that show that there are issues. There are statistics and data that shows there are problems, deep, long-running systemic issues that we need to address as a community. And our goal is, we're for public safety. We want the police to go home safe and we want the community to go home safe. We want everybody to go home safe. But there's a lack of trust and something is broken in that relationship. And that's more so that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a note from Paul on Facebook saying he wants First Coast Connect and the national media to acknowledge and correct that it was not a punch. He says, you slow down the video. At best, it was a slap, and that the continued use of punch to describe it is lazy journalism. So, I mean, it is important it was a flat hand that hit the side of his face that came through the window after the police broke the window. And, generally has been described as a punch. It certainly delivered, with some force, Regina. But I want to ask you, again, about that statistic that we discussed. How does that compare to perceptions, the people that you talk to in the community?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that have to be broken apart in this. So, for instance, what rises to the level of resisting arrest and being reported by the police officers? I even question, if there had not been a video, would this particular incident have risen to that? And we cannot be in a situation where videos are our accountability factor. George Floyd got attention because there was a video. Mr. McNeil is getting attention because there's a video. The majority of the time when we have encounters with police officers, there isn't a video. And my concern and our concern is when we also look at civilian complaints, the unbelievably low number of those that are upheld says to me there is a problem, particularly when the police officers are the ones who are policing themselves. And so, again, as Dr. Burgin said, we really want to have a community where our police officers are safe, but where our community is safe. And right now, we have a lot of people in our community who don't feel safe. And how do we get the two together to talk about the systems and the policies that allow for more accountability, but still protect our police officers and allow them to police in a safe, caring fashion that is the best for the community?
We've got a call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning. One of the things I found particularly disturbing about the McNeil case is the frequent reference to compliance hits or slaps. And I just don't think that the police should ever be initiating violence with a citizen. I mean, whatever happened to the motto of protect and serve? It just seems wrong. It seems like every citizen is entitled to respect and fair treatment.
Thank you, Tom. We also have a call from Curtis on the north side. Good morning, Curtis. Go ahead.
Good morning, my sisters. Everyone, how y'all doing? And I would like to ask Chief T.K. Waters, where do the police rights start and end as far as brute force? The attorney said the video showed the young man stopped running, said, "I'm complying," had his hands up, and the police officer used force, body slammed him into the roots and everything, and then another one came and pounced on his head. When are they authorized to act out of their own personal feelings? What, they are mad because the young man made them run after him? Like the man with the Neil. What, the officer was so mad that he had to break the window that he felt like he had the right to hit him in the face? And then if you see the video, he hit him again. And then the other officers pounce on this young man. What authority do they have to do that? That's what I want to ask the sheriff. But I can never get to him. I done went to several things he have had. You can never talk to him. Never. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Curtis. I want to ask you about that, Melinda, because obviously by policy and by statute, officers have a great deal of freedom to escalate if someone is resisting. And so they're allowed by statute and policy to sort of take it to the next level if someone doesn't comply. And not complying can be a simple act of kind of not, of stiffening your body, they might say, or refusing to put your hands behind your back. If someone, though, does kind of end their resistance in the case of this teen, is there a point at which they are obligated to pull back from that escalation?
Excuse me. By their own policy, yes. They are, especially when we're talking a situation like McNeil where we have passive resistance, not active resistance. Their own policy says that they have a duty to try to de-escalate the situation before any less than lethal force is used. I've seen it time and time again in my personal cases. We all saw it on the video. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, having watched the body cams, he asked for a sergeant. There was a sergeant on the way that was en route. So why this had to take place prior to the sergeant getting there when McNeil was not a flight risk, he was not leaving, he was not a danger to himself, he was not a danger to the officers, the circumstances had not changed to where you needed to bust the window and strike him in the face prior to a sergeant being there.
We've got a call from Tim in Orange Park. Just briefly, Tim, go ahead. Thanks.
Yes, I just want to make an observation. I got pulled over multiple times on Blandy Boulevard in Orange Park, but each and every time the police pulled me over, they used the different reasons for pulling me over, and twice they used the issue of, those are really nice tires. Where did you get those tires? What? It was a 1992 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham that I ended up selling because I got tired of getting pulled over. And another thing, as far as the punch goes, the palm of the hand, I teach martial arts. I teach students, how to break concrete with the palm of the hand. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Dr. Burgin, I'm curious, in these conversations that you've scheduled to talk about this, who is it intended for? Is it intended for the speakers, the people that are, coming to these events because they want to express concerns or just an opinion about them? Or are they for listeners that you're hoping to reach someone to kind of hear what's being said at these conversations?
Yeah, I would say it's for me, my goal is a duality of both. So we have some really informed speakers coming on Thursday night's conversation. I'll try to run through them all if I can remember, but ReGina will back me up. We have Pastor McKee from the Oak, who is rooted in the heart of Jacksonville, doing some amazing work. We have Representative Angie Nixon, and I am drawing a blank now. I almost called you Dr. ReGina. I think something is coming. But ReGina is leading the conversation. And who are the other two speakers?
So we have Nicole from the Tributary, who's coming talking about the media perspective, as
the
well
reporter
as,
there, Nicole Manna, yeah.
Yes, as well as Kim Varner, who is a retired person, a retired detective from JSO. We want to have a lot of perspectives in this, as well as an understanding of some of the foundational issues. But I think it's an opportunity for us to all really think and reflect about very casual things that are said that oftentimes underline or support behavior that we actually don't intend to support. So we really want to think about the meaning behind things, why people might react a certain way, and really challenge some thinking. So I agree, it's the duality of both. We really believe in educational experiences where people have an opportunity to hear from others, learn, and understand in a deeper way.
When it comes to the issue of compliance, as you've said, there are a number of people whose reaction to this video of William McNeil has been if he had just done what the officer said, and complied with the commands, none of this would have happened. Um, and I'm curious, especially for the work that you do, Melinda, there seems to be this impression that people have who haven't been through the system that there's sort of an opportunity to shake it all out and figure it out. And, if you just comply, at some point, you'll be able to tell your side of the story and everything will be okay. And I wonder if you can just sort of comment on, if that's the case, how it really does work for people if they comply and, don't, and what happens next?
Um, so especially in a context like with McNeil, where we had and I know it's debatable, but what I consider to be an illegal traffic stop, and then
Illegal
everyone.
because you don't think that the lights not being on was a valid reason to stop him?
Correct. I don't think the officer was in execution of illegal duty
Okay.
when he was doing the stop. But this perspective that you can be arrested, you can go to jail, you can deal with it later. When you go to jail, within 24 hours, you're going to first appearance before a judge. One of three things are going to happen at first appearance. You're either going to plead guilty, so you can get out and you can go home. First appearance is the most likely time that they will offer you time served and send you on your way if it's a misdemeanor. The second option is that you plead not guilty and you post a bond. Duval County is notorious through the state of Florida for having some of the highest bonds that are unaffordable by the majority of our citizens. And you come out, wait till your next court date, try to hire a lawyer if you can. And the third option is that you plead not guilty, you assert your rights, you don't have the money to bond out, and you sit in jail. You sit in jail for a month until your next court date, and it will probably be right around that month period before someone even looks at your case. So you're probably going to sit for another month after that before there's any disposition. So when you think about, especially for an adult with responsibilities, what happens to your life while you're sitting in jail for a month? You lose your job, you lose your home. A lot of people lose their kids. The system as a whole does not take into account the collateral consequences of someone going to jail just to comply. You should not have to lose your livelihood in order to not be assaulted.
Is first appearance court not an appropriate time to say, hey, this was not a legal traffic stop, or I shouldn't have been, treated this way. I wasn't violating the law.
If an inmate were to try to bring this proposition during first appearance calendar, when there's probably anywhere from 50 to 70 cases that have to be heard in a 2-hour time span, the judge is most likely going to direct them to please not talk about their case. They don't want them to say something that will incriminate them, and to speak with the public defender at a later point. There is really no opportunity for someone to assert these defenses at first appearance.
Okay. One of the segments that you are planning, in addition to the one is tomorrow night, is one that's focused on ICE practices in Florida right now and kind of the reality on the ground. I'm curious about the way that one is structured, because unlike the one that's tomorrow at the Jessie, and then the other two, which are also held, I think they're all at 6:00, but the other three are at the Jessie Downtown. This one is Zoom only. Can you explain why?
Yeah, that one supports informing our community and conversation, surrounding ICE. And, we know we want to make sure we're protecting the community that has entrusted us, So not intaking a lot of their information and making sure it's on Zoom. We want to make sure that we are supporting the solutions and not flaring the problem. Yeah.
And I mean, you would actually have concerns, ReGina, that somebody could be putting their liberty at risk if they were to be there in person or to make their names known.
There have been some incidences where that has happened, so we want to make sure that we're taking safeguards against that. We want people to, again, participate in our events and learn. We don't want people to enter in a state of fear. So having a webinar where you don't even know who's in attendance, people being able to share stories with some secrecy if needed, that provides comfort for them, but it is a layer of protection that we want to provide. And it really is a conversation for everyone. So I want to make sure that we are clear on that. while we certainly hope that we will have some people, some Latino residents to attend, we also want to have allies in this conversation and for everyone to really understand the impact of a lot of the behaviors and policies that have been put into place recently, what that's doing to actual people.
Yeah.
We've got a call from Hank on the north side. Good morning, Hank. Go ahead.
Good morning. How you doing?
Very well.
Good. I got a quick question. Why is it being thrown out the window that when the man was first stopped, he was asked to roll down his window and to exit the car? I don't know how many times, even though he wasn't violent, but yet he refused the commands of the police officer. I believe if he would have complied, he probably would have lost his car because he was driving under a suspended license. But I don't believe he would have been arrested if he would have just complied. But I think his hidden fear, he would have lost that car because he was driving under a suspended license, and he was warned about that a period of times, according to the information they saw on the computer. So what y'all think of that?
It's a good question, and I'll ask you, Melinda. I mean, you have two children of color. I don't know that they're driving age yet, but I mean, can you talk about that? You know, what obligation didn't he have? Didn't he have to comply with an officer's order?
So I think when we have this conversation about the compliance aspect, I think a lot of people are skipping past the part of this whole situation where he did in fact comply. The officer initiated the lights. He stopped. He opened the door. He communicated with the officer. I can't sit here and say what caused him to close the door. I was not there. I'm not him. So I can't speak to that. It could have been fear. It could have been concern about the suspended license. I don't personally know that, but nobody is actually acknowledging the fact that he did comply. One thing I see quite frequently in my cases is a fleeing and eluding charge. People just take off, go 100 miles an hour trying to get away. And I'll say now it doesn't usually end well. But McNeil did comply with the traffic stop initially. He started recording about the same time that he closed the door, which to me indicates that that's when the fear started to mount with the situation. My own children, who are biracial, society would consider to be Black men, are 16 and 19. So they are both driving now. I have had to have the talk with my children about how to interact with police and how to handle a traffic stop. And it is a very kind of heartbreaking conversation to have because you want your children to, respect authority. You want them to respect police and go to police if they were ever in need or in danger. But then there's this other side of this where you also have to acknowledge the situation that you're in and the inherent danger between you being an African-American male and having a traffic stop with the police. My 16-year-old just recently had his first traffic stop. It went well. This was in Clay County. And he immediately FaceTimed me as soon as the lights came on. He was panicked. He was terrified, but he did follow instruction, hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2, don't reach for anything. Before he got his license, he's asking the cop, can I move? And while I'm glad that this is instilled in him and will keep him from being a statistic or somebody in McNeil's position, it's also very disheartening to know that your children don't have their constitutional rights in place that they should to be free from unlawful search and seizure. In addition to, my personal take on the traffic stop itself, we also have the search of the car. So when you're arrested for something, they can only search the car if there is a likelihood that fruits of your arrest are going to be found in the car. So say a DUI, maybe we'll find alcohol in the car, right? If there's marijuana on you, maybe we'll find more marijuana in the car. They started searching the car before they had found the marijuana on him. So we have, if he'd come out the car, you didn't have a legal basis to search him. If it was for a suspended license, if you had run the tag, if you knew that, there was no legal basis to search him. There was no legal basis to search the car. The legality issues here in McNeil's case go far above and beyond his compliance.
I want to just briefly take a call from Daryl in St. Augustine. Daryl, we're wrapping up, so if you can just go briefly, please.
Yes. Good morning, and to your speaker, I'm sorry that your children have to go through what my children didn't have to go through. So I truly am sorry for you having to have that conversation with them. But your point about the three options that they have is go before the judge and plead guilty, which will cost you hundreds, if not $1,000 in court fees and fines and probation, etc. Or plead not guilty and go back to jail where you said you'll sit for a month, which Duval County Jail, I have helped a couple of people get out of there, and it is the single most dangerous place in all of Duval County. So your option is to plead not guilty and go back to the single most dangerous place in all of Duval County, or spend another $1,000 or several $1,000s for an attorney because the officer decided that you should have had your headlights on. Seems to be a very excessive and extreme thing for something as simple as headlights being off.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate your call. That said, there's obviously a lot of interest in continuing this conversation. So we should say if people are interested in attending the 9:00 Forward series, it does start tomorrow night. It's at the Jessie from 6 to 7:30. It's called Breaking the Code, Talking Through Encounters with Police. Do you want people to RSVP? Should they be going to your
Yes.
site for more information?
Yes, 904.org. You can hit our events, and all of our events are listed there.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on today. Thank you so much for continuing this conversation. We appreciate all your perspectives. Dr. Audrieanna Burgin, ReGina Newkirk, and Melinda Patterson, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us,
Thank you.
Ann.
Thank you.